Hi, Tom Cole for the Steve Taylor Community Star, and that's really what it is today. I'm sitting here with 3 stars. I have Karen McCoy, I have Eric Lehman from the Toledo Day Nursery, and it's wonderful to have you here. And the ultimate star, Mr. Steve Taylor, of course, our boss. And you know, it took me aback a little bit of, you know, the service that you're bringing to this community. For people that don't know, you're the oldest day nursery in Ohio. You're the 2nd oldest one in the United States. You celebrated a birthday, was it 150 years? Was that right?
150 years.
And when you first started, the first, you know, fee for someone was 5 cents, was that right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's been a while, but we were chatting off there. I'd like to get it on air. The service that you provide, 2211 Jefferson Street, and you also have a Stickney address?
2902 Stickney Avenue.
You provide a day nursery service for folks that maybe economically are below a certain line, that they don't have the means, and anybody who's paid daycare, child care knows what that expense is. And you're helping to break a cycle of poverty, because if you can't afford the day nursery care, you can't go to work. And you're changing this paradigm and allowing people to go to work, and yet they know their children are being so well cared for. Karen, how does that make you feel?
This is my life passion. It's my work that I believe I am sent to do. And so it's really an honor to be able to serve these children and these families that live in poverty. Toledo Day Nursery's focus is on supporting children whose families are either working or going to school.
Right.
Because we do know that the first 5 years of life are the most essential for brain development, for learning. We also find, and I don't know if COVID has been a part of this, but I think research would find that there is some backup to this. Children being isolated, the stress that families already who are living in poverty, struggling, and then COVID comes on top of that, and therefore financially they're struggling. They're trying to figure out as adults how to continue, and then they have children that they're also needing to support. So the last few years in particular have been very, very difficult for our families. Therefore, we're seeing trauma. Because parents are stressed, there's trauma in their home. And so we are finding that children are coming into our classrooms victims of trauma. And we're seeing behaviors, and that can be a lot of screaming, a lot of not knowing how to deal with their emotions, feeling the tension and the stress of what's going on at home, not knowing how to process it, and coming into school. And so we are really, really fortunate that we have teachers that are trained and ready to support those children. We also utilize outside services that their expertise is working with children in trauma. So it's a team effort in what we're wanting to do to provide for these children and families, because you're right. We're not only preparing these children for kindergarten, we are preparing these children for life. They will think back on those strategies that we taught them, even as babies, and then even in preschool, of taking deep breaths. And that's what research is telling us, is that there's strategies that we can teach children to support them when it feels like it's a fight or flight, which oftentimes is the response to trauma. And so we provide that safe, calming space for children to recognize their feelings and know how to respond.
Karen, maybe you can, when we get off here, you can teach that to Steve right before he fires Terry and I. If you take a couple of deep breaths, and maybe we'll survive that. Maybe that's something that we could work out.
Yeah, we could do that.
And Eric, talk a little bit about, I know you're proud of, it's not just a holding place for young kids. I mean, there is teaching going on, as Karen just talked about. There are great teacher-student ratios, skills that are taught, how to assimilate in, how to handle the pressures that Karen just talked about. And I know you're proud of that.
That's what really led me to become a board member of Toledo Day Nursery. Was, I guess I knew enough about early childhood education, and so I thought, how can I not, become a board member? And I saw all the really good work and how much more of a jump start these kids had being ready for kindergarten. And a lot of kids don't have that, and that's what this is about. I don't have to do it every day, but
Right.
Karen does.
Sure.
I'm going to call you Mr. Lehman because I think I've known you for 40 years. I couldn't call him Eric if I wanted to.
Okay, Steve.
Casey and I have been, and actually I think preschool together. So it's funny that here we are talking about another preschool. We started, 40 some years ago as classmates and still friends to this day. A few years ago, you reached out and asked if I'd come down and take a look at the center. I was able to come down, read some stories, share some photos, have lunch, and it was a great experience. Talk a little bit about, if you would, maybe an experience or two that have stood out in each of your minds of maybe a story, a heartwarming story, or something where you've made a positive difference, and it's one of those things that maybe it'll connect with one of the viewers, and they say, hey, how can I get involved? I'd love to come down and maybe volunteer, or how can I even financially get involved? Maybe one of those stories though that really shows what the differences you're making. I'm sure you got a ton.
I have so many.
All right,
I'll start with one. There was a mom that came into our building, and I was in the hallway and I could tell that she was crying, and I asked her, are you okay? And she said, just having a really, really hard morning. And I said, what's up? And she said that her ex-husband had taken her car and he didn't have a license, and so the car was impounded. And so she had to use an Uber to bring her 4 children to our location. But the Uber driver said that nobody could sit in the front seat, and so she was really struggling and trying to convince this Uber driver, please, I need to get my children and myself to Toledo Day Nursery. And so, again, she was just really distraught. And so I talked with her like, I'm so glad you're here, and tried to calm her down. Again, because I'm sure the children were feeling the tension of what was going on with mom and the driver and all of the craziness of that morning.
Sure.
The day had just started. And so I was able to just talk with mom. I actually asked her, do you want to come in for just a minute and let's just talk? We were able to get some funds to be able to help her, because what happens when your car is impounded, every day
Right.
the charge goes
Right.
higher. And so we were able to help her to be able to get her car so that she could then have that independence of being able to get her children to our location and then to work.
Right. So important. We sometimes forget and might take for granted just even like simple transportation or just the chaos of a morning. But I think Tom hit on it too. There's so many folks need the assistance of this child care, or they can't go to work.
Right.
And I think so many of these moms that you have come down there, they want to work,
Right.
but they don't want to leave their kids anywhere or with anyone.
Right.
A funny story about the name, when Casey and I were talking about coming down and getting involved, and we talked about the Toledo Day Nursery. This might be pretty funny, but I didn't know it was for kids. I thought, hey, what's your dad doing involved? Is he growing plants, or what's he doing? And I think, you talk about 150 years,
Yeah.
a nursery was more of a common
Yes.
name,
Yes.
and now everyone talks
Right.
about daycare. And so I just wonder too, if there's some folks out there when they hear Toledo Day Nursery, it's been around forever, but do some folks maybe not know exactly what you do and how they can get involved and how they can help?
Interesting that you talked about the word nursery, because my initial entry into Toledo Day Nursery as a board member was on the marketing side,
Okay.
because that's my background. More than once we talked about changing the name, but the name has essentially been around for over 100 years.
50 years.
And so it's sort of hard to let go of that.
Right.
That's why this kind of exposure, thanks to Tom and you, is so important for Toledo Day Nursery. And it's a little bit of a odd misnomer in today's world,
Right.
but it,
So I wasn't the only one that thought it had something to do with
no,
trees.
no,
Okay,
no.
good. Geez, I feel better. I didn't know if I should say that or not. People are like, look at this dummy up here.
But that is something that the marketing committee had talked about, and there was extensive research in trying to find a name that wasn't already in use, but still stayed true to who we were. And
Yeah.
it took over a year of digging and the committee looking at it and the board discussing it, and it just came back to, we need to stay Toledo Day Nursery. But what did change is that our tagline is Early Learning Centers, because we are not a daycare center. And that is something that I'm passionate about. When I first began working there, the teachers said they worked at a daycare center, and I said to them, you're better than that. You're an early childhood professional. A daycare means that you care for days. We're an early learning center where we're working with children, and we're making a huge difference for children. So that word daycare does not come out of anybody's mouth, at least while I'm around.
It's good to know. Yep, that's, but it's, you definitely are making a difference, and more so than just sending a kid to a quote-unquote daycare.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And our teachers have degrees. And what research tells us is that if we were to hire someone without a degree, they will be teaching as if they were parented, because that's all they know. And so what research says is that the more education that you have, the better teacher you're going to have. And that's why we are 5 out of 5-star rated, and we are nationally accredited, because there's a lot that goes behind the expectations for that. But one of them is because research, it's evident that the degreed teachers are going to be providing the learning experiences that are the best for this age group. And I want to say, we do serve children between the age of 6 weeks up to 8, to pre-kindergarten. And we just started one yesterday. We have a baby who's 6 weeks old.
Oh my goodness.
Just came in yesterday,
Wow.
real tiny,
Yeah.
she slept a lot yesterday, but
You know, Eric, I'm gonna, maybe off air, I'd like to hire Karen part-time as my therapist. Because I get how, it's so interesting how bad things are gonna happen to people. I don't care where you are on the economic strata. And it's how you react to those bad things. You choose a reaction. And I love your breathing techniques, and think about it, and that makes great sense, especially for young children that have been traumatized in some way, or their parents who have been traumatized. You're providing a service that is invaluable. I truly in my heart believe it's a misnomer that some people think, well, some Americans don't want to work and they just stay home. Most Americans want to work, and they want to be productive, and they want to be on a job, and they want to feel good about it, and they want to support their family. But, and I'm saying something that all of you know, but if you can't afford the child care, I remember back when I was teaching in the early days, you didn't make any money really, and it was a great occupation, but you didn't make any money. And my wife worked in a county job initially that didn't make any money. Her entire check for the 40-hour week, complete check, went to the daycare. And we were lucky to be able to even pay that. But there are people that aren't fortunate enough to pay that, and then what do? They can't go out and work. So you're providing a service that is so vital in our community, and you should be really, really proud of what you're doing.
well, and we partner with Job and Family Services.
Head Start too, or you was
and
Head Start?
We have Head Start and we have Early Head Start.
Okay.
So we have families that are receiving childcare subsidies so that they can work or go to school.
Got it.
And then oftentimes they don't pay anything. And then Job and Family Services pays us for taking care of their child. And again, it's the belief of let's take care of their children, putting
Yes.
them in a high quality early childhood
Yes.
program so that the parents can better themselves. And so again, it's elevating
It's a
the
double lift.
families and the
It's a
children.
double lift.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
One of the things we love to do when we have guests like this in is really try to raise awareness, and that's one of the things we talked about. Obviously having you on, hopefully some folks out there that maybe never knew about the organization will now know. How can people get involved? Are you looking for volunteers? Are you looking for donations? Are there certain things that folks can do? And could you share a little bit about that?
You bet. We would love to have people check out our Facebook page, and you will find a posting every day, Toledo Day Nursery, and it has photos and then a little description of what the children are doing, because we're wanting people to know the why behind what we do. There's always a reason for
Sure.
what we're choosing to do with the children each day. We're also really looking for some board members, and again, anybody, it takes all types of expertise to run an organization. So no matter the background, we would be able to plug them in to be able to be on our board and to be a part of what's happening. Volunteers are essential to our work. We are partners with a grandparents program, and so we have grandparents that come in, and some of them just sit in the rocking chair and they
Sure.
rock the baby in the
Sure.
infant room. So there's lots of different ways to be able
I was
to.
going to say, read stories to the children.
Absolutely, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and again, our ratios are way below what the state requires because we know that quality comes from relationships. Children first need to feel safe. Once they feel safe with their caregivers,
Right.
and again, they have to have low ratios so that the teachers get
Yep.
to know the children. So once children feel safe, then they can establish relationships. Those trusting, they know that they are safe, they have trusting relationships, and then that's when the learning takes place. So we know that there's like 3 steps where we need to be working with all children so that their brains and their bodies are ready for learning.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you very much for coming in today. It was great to learn a little bit more about the organization. Hopefully some folks that are watching out there will be interested. They can find out how to get a hold of you. We'll put your number and your information on screen too, so they can just...
Website?
Yep, we'll get the website on there for you. So it'll be nice and easy for everybody, and maybe you'll find a board member or two and maybe some volunteers. I said earlier, Terry and Tom and I should come down. We'll read some stories. It was a lot of fun with that when I was down there, so we'll make sure we do it again.
That would be awesome.
Yep, we'll make sure
And
we
we
do
have
that.
a few openings, not many openings, so if you are looking for high quality childcare, give a call.
great.
We may
That's
have
great.
some openings.
Yep, good deal. Well, thanks for tuning in to another one of Steve Taylor's Community Stars. We've got a few of them in-house here today. We'll see you next time. Take care.